there an official color for that suit? I see this dark green, but is that like a Miami green, or they got something?
I don't think this is the same green as Miami. I've had this one for a while.
So this was even pre-Miami?
Maybe? Yeah, I wore this for a game last year at Georgia. I forget which game, but I've had it for a while.
Well, you got to make do, right? Biggest change so far for you, Carson, in the transition going from Georgia to Miami? How are things different? What strikes you?
I think the biggest thing is the cities. Like, just the difference from Athens to Miami, obviously. Like, being in a big city like Miami comparative to a college town like Athens, right? And it's very, very different, right? The traffic in Miami is the worst thing I've ever experienced, ever. Thank God that I'm literally driving to the facility at like 5 a.m. because there's no one out, right, at 5. Otherwise, because when I'm leaving to go back home at like 1, 2, it turns from a 5-minute drive to get back home to like a 25-minute drive, which I don't even know how that's possible, but yeah, that's probably the biggest difference.
All right, how about the heat? I was talking to one of your teammates. They're telling me about coming out of the facility in the hot air. You know, Kirby always talks about the hot air. What's the difference in the training? Has there been a big difference climate-wise for you?
I wouldn't say that it's very different, but it's different, right? The heat in Georgia is almost like it's stagnant heat, right? But in Miami, it's just very, very humid. So like the air is very thick, breathing is difficult. When I first got down there, obviously I had been in Georgia for so long, I had gotten kind of used to the weather up in Georgia and not the humidity that Florida is. And Miami is even a different level than Jacksonville, where I'm from. So every night at like 10:30, I would put full sweats on, like put my hoodie on. People probably thought I was crazy if they saw me, and I'd go walk like 3 miles just to like get back accustomed to the heat, because obviously I had surgery. I wasn't able to really work out as much and kind of got out of shape through that process. So that's one thing that I did to kind of get back accustomed to the heat and the humidity and get back in shape.
To get that out of the way, what was the surgery? How did that go down? I mean, obviously you're back ripping it now, but what was the surgery? What was the injury?
So it was a UCL repair. I believe that's the correct scientific term. It wasn't a reconstruction where they actually have to go in and do the graft and all that stuff. So it's a much shorter, not that it was a short recovery time, but it's a much shorter recovery and then back to throwing time than it would be if it was a reconstruction. I'm not a scientific guru, but that's just from what I've heard, obviously, and learning more about what actually was done to my elbow. That's what I know. But man, I mean, I'm back 100% full go now, which is very exciting. I mean, it was a hard process. It was a hard journey to, go through that and get what I love the most taken away from me, right? And then, again, not being able to compete in the rest of the SEC championship game or go play against Notre Dame in the first playoff game, like, that was awful for me, like to sit on the sidelines injured, like wishing that I was out there with my guys, with my teammates that, we had grinded all offseason for that moment and for the playoffs, right? And then not being able to, play in that game was really tough on me. But, moving on and, getting to Miami and going through the process of getting back into throwing and, building the chemistry with all these wide receivers, running backs, tight ends, right? It's been a really fun process, and, I've really enjoyed the time.
The last handoff, before we get off the Georgia thing, you were in there for the last play of the SEC championship. Break that down, because Gunner gets knocked out. We think another guy's coming in. How do you end up in the game with one arm? What did you feel, and what was the conversation?
First off, it was a crazy thing because I probably shouldn't have even had pads on still, right? Just with the level of the injury at the time, we didn't know that that's what it was. We thought maybe it was just a sprain, like it was going to be fine. But so we're sitting there. This is actually so funny. We're sitting there on the sidelines, and like I have like an earpiece in. Like I'm sitting there with the earpiece, like listening to the plays, like trying to dissect what the defense is trying to do, because maybe they'll switch it up a little bit with a different quarterback in there. So I have the earpiece on, and Gunner gets knocked down, right? And he's coming off the field, and Coach Smart is yelling. He's like, Carson, like. He's like yelling for me. I'm like, my helmet, thank God my helmet was on the sideline. He's like, can you take a snap? And I was like, I don't know, like, I'll try. Like, let me try. So anyway, Jared Wilson comes running over, and I take like 3 snaps, and my arm is literally like stuck, like in position. I'm like, I can take the snap and hand it off. And so they give me the play call in, and I'm running out on the field, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, wait, I'm gonna have to hand this off with my right arm. I'm really hoping that I get this done. So anyways, I go into the huddle. Everybody like looks at me like, what the hell are you doing in the game, right? They're like, well, you've been out. I'm like, I don't know. Can we get this done like right here and now? Like get this thing in the end zone? They're like, bet. So we go in there, take the snap, literally handed off like all short-armed and stuff, and then Trevor gets it in the end zone. We win the game. People like jumping on me and stuff. I'm like, yo, chill. Like I'm injured, but no, man, that was a really cool moment. I think to be my last play for Georgia, and not the injury be my last play. So it's kind of full circle there.
How hard was it to leave Georgia?
Very difficult. It was never a plan for me to leave Georgia and go elsewhere. My plan obviously was to spend my career and time in Georgia and then ultimately go into the NFL, which has been a dream of mine since I was a kid. But kind of just the way that the cards played out and the hand that was dealt with the injury and being there for 5 years was a long time, man. And I'm so thankful for the experience that I had and getting to play under a coach like Coach Smart, and him instill all of these different life lessons and values, not only from a football aspect, from a life aspect, right? To have played under him was special, and I'm very appreciative for everything that he did for me and did for the teams that I was on. So no, it was very difficult, and again, moving on to Miami and now playing under another great coach like Coach Cristobal, the way that he runs the program and the culture that he's been able to build over the last couple of years at Miami, I'm very impressed with, and just trying to get instilled and entrenched into the culture and build relationships with these guys on this team. It's been a lot of fun, man. It's really exciting as we go into fall camp and really get into the bread and butter of what this season is going to be about.
Carson, I think there's 8 transfer quarterbacks in the start this year from the ACC. Why are so many guys transferring into this conference? And does it have something to do with guys like Drake May and Cam last year and their success that they've had?
I think a big part of obviously why I came to Miami was the offensive fit, right? The schematic fit, the fit with Coach Cristobal's vision and his culture that he's built here, and then obviously Coach Dawson as the offensive coordinator, the fit with him, right? The relationship that has to be built there between the offensive coordinator and the quarterback. But obviously seeing success from guys that you just mentioned is a huge thing, and I don't think it has to do with what league you're in necessarily, but more of a offense/schematic standpoint, right? And a fit for throwing the football, having a balanced attack, having a run game, having talent around you is so important as a quarterback, right? And I think that's something that Miami really brought to the table, and I thought it was a really good fit for me, the best fit of maybe anywhere else that I could have gone, but ultimately I made a decision to come here, and I feel like it's worked out pretty well so far.
Carson, have you tried to take what you learned from being part of a playoff program in Georgia? Have you tried to get to kind of instill that at Miami?
Yeah, I think my experiences and maybe some of the games that I've played in, the teams that I've been on, and I'm a very observant person, I think, and with that being said, coming into Miami and trying to maybe instill some of those things, whether it's in like a one-on-one with a guy and we're having a conversation about the season coming ahead, or whether it's speaking up in front of the offense or speaking up in front of the team, and just trying to teach those around me what I know and teach them through my experiences, I think is something that I bring to the table. So yeah, I would say that through my experiences and the things that I've been through, I'm able to maybe teach others and help others through those things.
Can you talk about some of the receivers, young guys and guys that even transferred in? How's that looking?
Yeah, of course. I'm actually really excited. As we've gone through this summer and the work that we've been able to put in up to this point, you got some glue guys that have been there for a while, and then you got a couple transfers that have come in that are some veteran guys that have played a lot of football and gotten a lot of snaps, and then you got these young, talented freshmen, right? You've put all these things together, but the thing that I think I'm most impressed with that group is their mentality, right? Whether there's doubts about them or things being said about them, they could care less. They just want to get better. They just want to work. They just want to grind. And they've not only shown that with their words and saying that that's how they want to be, but like through their actions, right? Whether it's meetings, it's the summer, right? Like most guys have 1 or 2 classes. Like there's not a lot going on. There's a lot of free time. And with that free time, it's me and them meeting, right? We're coming in before the workout to get an hour film session in at 6 a.m. And then after the workout and player-led practices, we're getting another film session in as a whole entire group. Or I'm meeting with 3 or 4 guys, right? Like their want to get better is off the charts, and it's something that has really impressed me, as we've gone through the summer.
And I know you're from Jacksonville, but you got to be familiar now with his self-footed style, receivers especially. Going back to like that state title game, have you ever talked smack with the guys at Columbus?
Yeah, there's a couple of guys on the team that actually went to Columbus. Obviously, I was in high school ages ago, so a lot of the guys that went to Columbus were not actually on Columbus when I was in high school. But I remind them, who was the better team that year. So.
Carson, how long would have been in Georgia? What a playoff team looks like, feels like. Do you look around your locker room, your practice room, and you're like, yeah, this has that feel to me?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the teams that I was on at Georgia, there are some very talented teams, right? I look around, at our team, and you see the work ethic, you see the leadership from guys like Coach Cristobal, from Coach Dawson on the defensive side, Coach Heatherman, him being new, instilling this passion and a new culture on the defensive side of the ball that our players are really buying into. You look at all these different factors. And you say, yes, there's a lot of talent. I think the biggest thing from the teams that I've been on that define, being a championship team is being able to face adversity. So what do you do in the face of adversity? Do you just give up, quit, throw your towel in, or do you keep fighting and ultimately, succumb to that? Obviously, that's not something that we'll really be able to find out. You can only, implicate it in certain situations, whether it's in a run or whether it's in workouts, right? You're working your tail off in there. That's adversity, but it's not adversity in a game, right? So when the going gets tough, do the tough get going? And I think that's what ultimately, defines a championship or playoff caliber team.
How long did it take for you to, did it click? You said this was the best decision for you and your future. How long, when you got to Miami, did you validate within that, yeah, I did the right thing?
I think I really was able to tell just in meeting Coach Cristobal and Coach Dawson that first time. Obviously, that has to be solidified, right, through actions and through time, because that's the only way that you're able to tell is really time. But those first couple conversations that I had with them, just seeing their mindset and their approach and their demeanor and how they carry themselves, it was very attracting to me, because I feel like it really matches with who I am as a person and the way that I approach the game. And then obviously as time has gone in this offseason from January to now in July, almost entering fall camp, it's been everything and more than what I expected from them and the team as well.
You mentioned the schematic fit with Shannon Dawson and his offense. I'm not asking for any state secrets. Can you elaborate on that and why you think that fits you?
Yeah, of course. You look at the scheme that he runs with a balanced attack. Being able to live behind your offensive line, run the ball efficiently, and then having play action attack off of that. Right, a good red zone scheme. Whether it's being able to run the ball or throw the ball, get outside of the pocket, go fast, go slow. Right, change of tempo, always keep the defense off balance, and then really the freedom aspect is what I find so intriguing. You go back and you watch the film of last year, and this speaks more. A lot of numbers to who Cam Ward is as a quarterback and how he played as well. It's just that freedom aspect and the trust that Coach Dawson, had in him. And ultimately, I hope that I can earn the same trust from Coach Dawson as well, just through fall camp and then ultimately getting into games and making good decisions and being efficient. But that freedom aspect is a fun part of the offense.
Where are you in your
leading Miami, right? The pressure with that comes, and also the fan base. Do you feel like there's pressure that comes with the fan base and the era that's in with playing with Miami?
I feel like there's pressure in any situation. If that's the question, then yes, there's pressure. If the question is, do I feel the pressure? No, I really don't. Having played at Georgia and having to follow up a two-time national champion, that's probably the most pressure that you could possibly have. And the SEC schools, those fan bases are insane, right? You go back and you look at the culture of Miami, right, and the fan base that they've always built. It's got to be something similar, right? And obviously I haven't experienced that yet, but it's something that I'm looking forward to, and I'm sure that game will be packed out. First game against Notre Dame. So, to be honest, I'm just looking forward to the entire season. There's a lot of teams that I've never played as a quarterback, right? Obviously being in the ACC now and not being in the SEC anymore, there's a lot of teams that I've never had the opportunity to go up against. So that always creates a new challenge, and playing against different defensive coordinators that have different philosophies, and that's the part of the game that I love, right? The chess match, the give and take of, does this guy like to pressure a lot? Does he play a lot of zone? Does he play a lot of man? So I think that's what I'm most excited about. Maybe not playing a certain team, but having the opportunity to go up against these different defensive coordinators with different philosophies, which ultimately, bring new challenges.
You mentioned at the podium. There's been a pretty big trend in the last few years of college football where you sort of get these quarterbacks that come out of nowhere, maybe were backups elsewhere, transfer in, and Cam is a great example, Joe Burrow a couple years ago. As someone who has experienced the developmental side of this, of being with a program for several years, and now being in the other shoes of kind of trying to get up to speed with an offense in the span of an offseason, also while injured, what is difficult about that compared to maybe how your college career started with some of these quarterbacks that are having, multiple years of a system to learn a playbook?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I don't know exactly how to put this, but football is football, right? Offense is offense. So everybody runs the same stuff. It's different words, it's different lingo, it's whatever, right? Different scheme, I guess, how offensive coordinators put things together, right? I'm trying to kind of explain this. But for me, honestly, I think it helped a little bit that I actually was injured, because I had so much more time to focus on the mental aspect of it, and maybe I'm just trying to make it a positive a little bit, but I was able to really focus on the mental aspect and really dive into the playbook and see it from a coach's perspective, because I don't think you really know something until you're able to teach it, right? I think that's when you've mastered a topic, is when you can teach it. So all off season, I was in more of a coaching role, not all off season, but the spring, right? Once the summer came, I was good and practicing and whatnot, but in the spring, I really took on more of a coach's role, which was a lot of fun for me, and kind of surpassing that time where I wasn't able to throw, right? And really putting my focus into something else. But I think that moment right there where I was having to coach and teach, and I think it helped me learn the offense even faster, which honestly, I don't think it was super difficult, just because, again, being in the Georgia offense and being around Coach Monk and being around Coach Bobo and, being in their offenses, made learning this offense a lot easier.
Yeah, the way college football offenses are run, do you think it's made it easier for quarterbacks anywhere to transfer in and kind of pick things up quickly? Has there been sort of a flattening of scheme in a way?
No, I don't think so. Obviously, being in a more pro-style scheme, Coach Monken came from the air raid system, if I'm correct. So there's a lot of similarities and concepts and that type of stuff. So how I read one thing at Georgia is probably going to be the same way you read a play, but the coach has a different perspective on it, if that makes sense. So it's very interesting to see different perspectives from now being on my third offensive coordinator, and just taking little pieces and bits from each one of them and ultimately adding it to my game. I think has ultimately made me a better quarterback.
Where are you now in your injury recovery process? Are you back to normal yet?
Yeah, fully normal, 100%. There's, no issues, no problems, nothing from that standpoint of things. So yeah, it's honestly awesome. Going through that journey and that experience was really tough. So just being able to be back now and just go out and throw and not have to worry about anything is a great feeling.
When did you feel 100%? When did you feel like yourself?
I'd say the first 2 weeks of when I started to throw again was the hardest 2 weeks, because it was more of a mental thing than anything. My arm was fully healed, it was all fine, but the last time that I had thrown a football, my elbow literally ripped, you know what I'm saying? So it's trusting that when I throw, everything's gonna be fine was the hardest part. And then I think about 2 weeks in, it was on a Friday, I was in Jacksonville, we were training, and they were just dude, just let one rip, you have to just trust. And I was okay. And I went back and I just threw it as hard as I could, and it spun out perfect, and I was okay, I'm good. So from that moment on, it was almost just compounding, and just got significantly better from there.
Sorry, when was that ish?
Oh gosh.
Making me think. I know.
This month or last month?
No, that was late April probably.
So late April, you let it rip. You feel all right?
Yeah. So been good also.
You mentioned how being in the ACC now, you're going to be playing all these new teams. But Florida State is a team you've already played in that Orange Bowl, and now they're a rival. Going back to that Orange Bowl, how'd you guys kind of handle going into that, seeing all the opt-outs at FSU, and like what was kind of the mentality going into that game, knowing it wasn't like the Forge?
I mean, regardless of their decisions on what they wanted to do with our team, a lot of our guys decided to stay and play in that game, which I think really spoke to our culture of who we were that year as a team. At Georgia, we had a great season in 2023. Ultimately, came up 3 points short in the SEC championship game against Alabama. But again, like what their players' decisions were to play or not play, were no concern to us. We were going to prepare to go, kick butt, and that's what we do every single time. So, no, I mean, just like we prepare for any other game, them opting out or anything like that had no change in how we prepare. Just go out and go win the game.
And then how much more is that game emphasized feeling now that you're at Miami, like having to play Florida State as the rival? Like, is that an emphasized game in the locker room all year?
I mean, yeah, it's a rivalry game, of course. That's a main focal point, I think, in any program is beat your rival, right? And there's the same thing at Georgia, same thing here, right? Those rivalry games are going to be some of the biggest ones with the biggest fan bases, the biggest crowds, right? So yeah, I mean, that's definitely a game that I'm looking forward to and excited for.
You mentioned the podium. You talked to Cam Ward a few times. I guess what was his message about Miami? Is that during the recruiting process? When did y'all talk? And what was his message?
So when we talked, obviously, he was going through the draft process and whatnot, so he's obviously very busy, but I was able to meet him when he was back for his pro day. And we didn't talk much, just met and just chatted about a couple things, his, NFL process and, heading into the draft and what he was looking forward to and all that type of stuff. But there really wasn't a lot of talk about Miami. It was just more like two quarterbacks just chatted up, having a good time.
Carson, Coach earlier was talking about the pressure that he feels for the Miami reputation, the history of Miami and all that sort of thing, and being a Miami guy. You come in, you know what pressure was like in Georgia because the expectations, I got to believe, are fairly similar. Is that something you can relate to now in a new capacity? And on top of that, there's been a lot of publicity about NIL deals and things like that. Does that add any pressure on you?
I think there's always pressure when it comes to a position or a team that is in the spotlight with high expectations, right? When the expectations are higher, the pressure is obviously higher. I don't think our team feels the pressure or thinks about the pressure at all, right? We're just focused on what we have to do. And if we end up diving into, outside noise or other things, that's when, our focus is taken off of what it's supposed to be on, which is working each and every day to get 1% better. And then ultimately when we get the opportunity to go out and have the opportunity, right, to go play, we just have to go execute. So like really, I mean, that's like super dumbed down, but like that's what it is. I think the more simple you make this, right, not only life, but the sport of football, like simplicity is really good, right? Simplicity and consistency win football games. So for me, that's kind of my approach, and I think that's our team's approach as well as far as handling, the pressure and expectations.
And last thing, as far as the NIL deal, people would say they just went out and got the $4 million quarterback. Is that pressure on you to perform any more so than it would be otherwise?
I think I've had pressure my entire life. I mean, I've played in big games. Everything, it's all relative, right? And a time aspect. When I played in the state championship, my junior year of high school was the biggest game of my life at that moment, right? And then I played in the SEC championship last year. That was the biggest game of my life in that moment, right? Or the SEC championship the year before that. That was the biggest game in that moment, right? So, as life goes on, you're going to constantly have those opportunities. But I don't think that anything that I've been through or maybe achieved adds pressure. It's always been pressure. It's all relative, right? It's all relative to the user of how they want to look at it. So at the end of the day, I just get to go play quarterback and play the game that I love, which I'm so blessed to have another opportunity to be able to do for another year at least. So just very excited for the season.
Since you mentioned the outside noise, I know this offseason there's a lot of negative energy probably going your way. I don't know if you're able to block all that out, but if not, I mean, can you channel some of that to something positive and kind of motivating for you when fans give you a hard time about that?
I mean, again, like everybody's entitled to an opinion, and like at the end of the day, like if you have a problem with me, then like come tell me about it, right? And if you don't like have the contact information to come tell me about it, then you probably shouldn't have a problem with me at the end of the day. So, but kind of moving off of that, I think there's a lot of positive energy being at a new place with new coaches and new teammates. I'm really excited for the season and being able to play with these guys again. Kind of what I've been talking about is, the motivation and the discipline that these guys have, and like the want and to be better, and coming in early, coming in late, getting in extra work. Like it's really been a lot of fun this offseason, and I'm really, really excited to see how that pays off as we dive into the season.
You've spent time in the SEC. Fans like to make comparisons between the SEC and ACC. How do you see the two leagues kind of comparing or stacking up against one another?
I don't think it's really an SEC-ACC conversation, because you could ask the same question of like team to team. So like that's how I like to see it, at least from a quarterback perspective. It's more of like a defensive coordinator to defensive coordinator perspective, because like that's what I'm going against. I'm not going against the SEC defense, because South Carolina is going to look different than Kentucky, as Kentucky is going to look different than Tennessee is, right? So it's more like coach to coach basis, which I think is what I'm so excited for. I kind of talked about it earlier, is playing against new defensive coordinators, right? That's the side of the game that I really love, is the chess match of it, right? How they're preparing, what they're doing to try to stop our offense, and then ultimately what we're doing to try to counteract what they're doing through film study and through in-game adjustments and things like that. But I think that's the biggest difference. It's really just like defensive coordinator as opposed to SEC versus ACC.
Any specific defensive coordinators you're looking forward to matching up against?
All of them. I don't know. Right? Just new scheme, new things. Obviously, guys talk to each other. Defensive coordinators across the country talk to each other. Whether it's this guy could be a third down guru. This guy is, does exotic stuff on rundowns. They like to play more zone than man in the reds. All these different. I could talk about football for 5 hours up here, but I'm really just excited to play against the teams.
Have you heard anything about, speaking of those conversations, anything about Tom Allen and at Clemson?
You said what?
Tom Allen.
We played against them last year at Georgia, so they're very talented. They had a very talented front seven. You go watch that first half. There wasn't much that we could do on offense when I was at Georgia in that first half, and then ultimately that first drive of the second half, we were able to put it together. We scored the first touchdown, and ultimately just started to roll from there. Our defense really played a big role in that game as well. But obviously they were one of the premier defenses that we played last year.
Carson, Dawson's offense that fit your game particularly?
I just think the balance that he brings and the philosophy that comes from an offensive coordinator, right? The realization that he's not going to be right every time, I'm not going to be right every time, right? But if we work together, we can be right more oftentimes than not. And that comes from pre-game preparation, that comes from in-game adjustments, right? And ultimately me trusting him, right? Which I 100% trust him as we go into this season. And I love to be coached. And I think he does a great job of that, of having a balance of, being on your tail and then backing off and letting you, kind of be yourself, letting Carson be Carson, right? I'm really excited to, have a full season with him. Obviously, it's just been the off season for right now, but excited to get into the season with him as my receiver.
Hey Carson, just talk about playing two of Miami's most seeded rivals, Notre Dame and Florida State, as a quarterback of Miami Hurricanes.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Rivalry games are always the most fun. Being at Georgia, always playing that rivalry game in Jacksonville against Florida every single year, and then Georgia Tech at the end of the year. Those were always two of my favorite games, being at Georgia. So, coming to a new school and having new rivals and getting to play both of them this year, I'm very excited. I think it'll be a lot of fun, and those are always really fun, enjoyable games.
Carson, you're coming from a program that was at a very high standard, obviously championship level. Coming to Miami as a program, are there similarities that you see? Obviously, this program hasn't won an Natty in a lot longer of a time, but are there things you see that are comparable to the level Georgia's operating?
Yeah, I think especially now in today's college football, there's a lot more parity amongst teams, right? I think talent is more spread out just with NIL and the transfer portal and just everything that college football has kind of turned into. But you look across our team, you see great leadership from the coaches, you see great scheme from the coaches, you look at the players around, you see great talent. And kind of what I've been saying, just from being on the teams at Georgia that were championship caliber teams, they they face adversity really well, and I think that's what defines a championship caliber team, is being able to face adversity, right? When the going gets tough, do the tough get going, right? And that's not something that we'll really be able to see until we get into the season. But I do know that there's a lot of talent and really good chemistry, honestly, up to this point, and really good coaching staff that's going to lead us to the best of their ability. So, when we face those moments of adversity, I think that'll, be the defining factor of whether or not we're a championship playoff contender.
Yeah, and you were talking just a second ago about your relationship with Shannon Dawson, letting Carson be Carson, and the discussions you have about your play style. Last season, obviously, turnovers were an issue at times. What have the discussions been like with Shannon about how to limit turnovers? Is that a case of like being less aggressive or taking your shots when you can? What have those conversations been?
Yeah, I mean, we don't really, it's not something that we've really talked about. You don't talk about limiting turnovers. Obviously, you don't want to turn over the ball, right? And that's pretty self-explanatory. I think just last year there was just times where I just tried to press too much. I tried to be Superman and save the day, and that's not what we need. I just need to be myself. So coming to Miami, I think the biggest thing and approach for me is prepare the best way that I can before the game, put myself in the best possible position, and then ultimately just trust the guys around me, just be me, right? Because when I've been myself in the past, we've won a lot of football games, you know what I'm saying? So really, again, that's my biggest focus just going into the season.
After your surgery, did Kirby ever say, hey, we want you back for 2025?
Yeah, absolutely. Those conversations were had. Again, ultimate respect for him, the things that he instilled into me, not only as a player, but also as a person and in life, the things I was able to learn from him. I mean, I couldn't imagine being in the position that he's in, right? But yet, obviously, being the quarterback at Georgia is one thing, but being the head coach, I can only imagine the stress and the things that he has to handle and put up with on a day-to-day basis. So, I have the utmost respect for him and my time there, right? But just moving on and, turning the page and starting a new chapter, I'm really excited, to play under Coach Cristobal, have new coaches, new faces, new teammates, right? It's a fresh start, I think. Obviously, it's a continuation of my career, but it's a fresh start in new school. So I'm really excited to, get into the season and ultimately go compete with the guys.
Did you give any advice to Gunnar about him taking over?
Well, of course. I mean, him and me, I thought, had a pretty good relationship. Obviously, we're very different people, but I always thought we had a really good relationship, and he was always my roommate during games. So we watched a lot of film together. We went over scripts together. We went over, schematical things in our offense together. But people don't know this. He was actually the first person that I called after I got injured. And so I was I told the story earlier, but I'll try to go through it fast. Whenever I found out that I got injured or that I had to go get surgery, I headed out of the facility and I sat in my car for like 4 hours outside the facility, just like completely devastated. Didn't really know like what my future was going to look like from that. But like an hour into that of me just like sitting there not doing anything, I was like, okay, like let's like get on the phone and like try to like get out of this rut. But Gunnar was actually the first person that I called. I just called and told him, I was like, dude, like, whatever, this is what happened, this is what they're saying, like I'm gonna have to get surgery, and like you're up, dude, like I believe in you, like if you need anything from me, just let me know, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm gonna let you do your thing, because like I think the biggest thing too is like in that position and understanding what it's like to not only play quarterback but play quarterback at the University of Georgia. It's a very tough position to be in, right? There's a lot of expectations, there's a lot of things that get put on you, so for me to try to tell him how to do that would put him at a disservice, right? I told him, like, if you need something from me, I'm here for you. But I wasn't gonna try to, press him into anything. But yeah, he was the first person that I called, just wishing him luck. And obviously, he went out there and competed his balls off. So always a fan of his and the relationship that we have, and hopefully he has a great season this year.
Carson, what do you make of the quarterback play in the ACC? It's something the league is touting this week. You're obviously with the new quarters. How do you just kind of think of the other quarterbacks?
I've only gotten to play against a handful of them, so there's not obviously I watch a lot of defensive football, right? I don't watch a lot of offensive football of other teams. But who did I play last? We played against Clemson last year, so a guy like Cade Klubnik, who I actually met at the Manning camp, not this past year, but the year before. Seemed like a great dude, seemed super chill, obviously very talented. So I'm sure he'll have a great season and, lead that team like he has in years past. And then the other guy that I played against last year was Haynes King, who personally, was one of the best games I've ever watched of offensive football when he played against us, coming into Athens and being able to compete at a high level like he did. So that's another super talented guy. But as far as the other guys go, obviously, I mean, I haven't played or really seen any of them play, so it'll be exciting to, play against new teams, being in a new conference, and obviously getting to see, the immense amount of talent out there at the quarterback position.
Carson, I apologize if you've been asked this before, I got here late. How well have you picked up on the offensive system so far?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, 7 months in, I mean, I'm fully entrenched in it.
Okay.
It's like second nature to me now. I feel like, that process at the beginning is always going to be like a transition period of new lingo and new words and new plays and everything of that sort. But, having all this time to, really dive in and study the playbook, at this point, it's like looking at the back of my hand.
This team came so close to getting to the college football playoff last year. I know the expectation this year is to not just get to the college football playoff, but to win games in the college football playoff. How confident is the team? Is that the attitude of the team coming into the season?
Yeah, of course. I think the biggest thing for us, which being on teams that have had success in the college football playoff and have won it all, right? From what I've seen is making sure that your focus stays like very minimal on the day at hand, right? Not looking too far into the future, right? So what's next for us, right? We have this discretionary week where guys are getting in extra work, putting in overtime, preparing their bodies for a fall camp where we're about to get after it, right? So next is this fall camp, and if we can just have an elite day one and then move on to day two, have an elite day two, and just continue to prepare ourselves for the schedule that we have ahead, which is going to be super fun with a lot of talent that we're going to play against. I think that'll ultimately set us up, hopefully, for our dreams and aspirations later in the season.
Well, I'll tell you what, it doesn't get much tougher than going up against Notre Dame in the first week of the season. How excited are you to be playing the Irish?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, kind of like I just said, our schedule and who we have to face this year, it's going to be a lot of fun. The schedule that I played last year was a really fun one, and again, I have another really exciting schedule looking forward to, and a lot of new teams that I've never played against. So, every opponent, we'll go week by week, and really the biggest thing for us right now is being the best possible team that we can be going out there on August 31st on Sunday, and that starts with having an elite camp. So.
You talked about really stepping into your leadership role here in Miami and also serving your team well. How have you felt like you've accomplished that in the preseason, but now stepping into the season?
Yeah, I think when I first got here, obviously it looked a little different because I was injured. I wasn't able to practice as far as physically. So I feel like I tried to take on like a coaching role where guys could, I could still earn the respect and earn that from other guys, right? Through teaching and coaching and even learning from them, right? Because it's kind of a push-pull sort of thing when it comes to, football. But I think that's how I did it when I first got here. But now actually being able to practice, throughout the summer and player-led practices and all that type of stuff, just kind of stepping into that leadership role and being that guy that people look to and respect is something that's honestly expected of a quarterback position. And I think it's something that I've done well up to this point and hopefully continue to do as the season goes.
Two more questions, folks, if you have them.
Just one quick question. Do you expect the offense to be more run-heavy this season?
I think it's just game to game, honestly, based off what a defense is trying to do to you. Obviously, we have a great offensive line and great RBs, so you lean on the running game, which ultimately opens up the passing game. I mean, it's a push-pull. You have a good passing game, you have a good running game. You have a good running game, you have a good passing game. But I don't think you can have one without the other. So,
thank you.
Of course.
Who stood out to you on that receiving group after a big turnover for UM with Restrepo leaving and everything? Who's that name that we're going to be hearing a lot of now?
Yeah, honestly, I think the thing that I'm most excited about is the depth in that room, all the way from glue guys that have been there to veteran transfers to young freshmen that are coming in that are explosive and talented. All across the board, I really think that there's going to be a lot of production in that room, and you can just see it with the preparation and the mentality and the approach that they've had this offseason, right? I think, everyone says, oh, there's a lot of turnover, there's a lot of this, there's a lot of that. Well, I mean, they're going to have something to say about that, come season. So
I know you haven't necessarily practiced with the team or anything, but who on the defense has shown that they're going to be one to counter? I know your teammates were mentioning that you know what's happening, so you're able to switch a play call and then the line. Who's that guy that's going to be? You're going to have to make sure you're on your A game because he's going to bring.
Yeah, I mean, you look at these veteran guys like Mezzi, like Ruben Bain, guys that are going to step up and have had a lot of production for Miami, obviously. But really, you look at Coach Heatherman and what he's done with the defense, and kind of the energy that he's instilled to them. Going up against them in PLPs, it's difficult. I mean, it's a lot of fun to play against a defense that's going to challenge you, and ultimately, it's like iron sharpens iron, right? I'm getting better as they're getting better, and they're getting better as I'm getting better. The offense, I should say, not just myself, but. No, man, I'm really excited to see what they're able to do and watch those veteran leaders on that team lead the defense.
I appreciate it, Carson.
Absolutely.
Last question.
Carson, playing under an elite head coach like Kirby Smart at your time at Georgia, and then coming to Miami and getting to know basketball, do you see any similarities in maybe their strategy, philosophy, or even personalities?
Well, I think the biggest thing, as far as a head coach goes, right, is the how do they carry themselves, right? How do they lead a team? Obviously, every person is different in the way that they do that, right? Coach Cristobal is, and don't get me wrong when I say calm, cool, collected, because he will jump on you when it's needed. But he's very calm, cool, collected, and his approach to the game is one I haven't seen before. I really appreciate, the way that he dives into the relationships, right? And it's very relationship oriented. The relationship that we've been able to build in just 7 months has honestly been awesome, man. And I really appreciate him for that. But again, I'm very excited to get to play underneath him and what he's been able to do since he's got to Miami in the past couple of years and really start to turn the program back around into what we want the U to be.
Awesome.
Absolutely.